evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture, joined as always by my co-host, General Manager Extraordinaire Mark.
Hello.
And King of the Mahoning, Owner Projectionist Extraordinaire, Jeff. Say hello, my friend.
Good evening, everybody.
Tonight, we continue our owner-operators series that everybody loves, and as we are getting ready for our 2024 season and marking the 75th anniversary of the Mahoning Drive-In, it's really great to shine the light again on the eclectic bunch of folks that make up the drive-in culture currently. And today, we're joined by Paula Herron, who runs the Central Drive-In Theater in Norton, Virginia. They call the Heart of the Appalachia. She's been the owner since 2005. A single screen, just like the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Opened in 1952, just 3 years after the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. And we have a lot to talk about because there's some really cool, unique things that she's got going on. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh my gosh, we are so excited to have you. And, you know, to give the listeners a little bit of the backstory, sometimes when we set up these interviews, they go perfectly. But we had the anticipation with this one because we actually missed our last recording session. So the nice thing with these owner-operator interviews is that we kind of deep dive into what your theater is all about. We immerse ourselves in it a little bit just to get, you know, a feel for what your business and area is like. And sometimes when we do these, it's like bang on to the next one. But with this one, you know, it really got to live with us for a couple weeks. So,
well, I love to talk about my drive-in.
Good.
We're all big fans of drive-ins. Like, so we get really excited about doing each of these. And when we do the research on everybody's theater, like we just like literally cannot wait to talk to you about this theater. So prepare to be assaulted with questions.
I'm ready.
Well, let's start with you. You know, obviously the theater has its long history, but being owners, operators in the modern day, how did you come to become the owner of the Central?
Well, actually, my husband and I became the owners sort of by chance and we really wanted it. We had been video game operators for years, and the previous owners, we are only the second owners of this drive-in.
Oh, that's beautiful. So passed on from the original. Yeah.
Yes. The previous owners had leased out all the video games to us. We were their video game provider for their indoor and the outdoor theater. And they had several locations.
You mean like arcade video games?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
My gosh.
And they had several locations throughout Southwest Virginia that we provided them games at. And one day, the story is great. One day, the owner and my husband, who've known each other for several years, sat down at a Pizza Hut location in Coburn, Virginia, and started talking about selling the business to my husband. Oh. And they would write a price down on, and we bought indoor and the outdoor theater. So, and they would talk about the price, and they would each write a price down on the napkin in their own corner of the napkin. The other one would take it home. And finally, in the center of the napkin was the final sale price.
Oh, that's something out of a movie that we play.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And I have that framed for my husband downstairs in his office.
That is, well, I have so many questions because, you know, our love of film and movies crosses over with everything retro at this point and nostalgic at this point. And boy, do cabinet video games fall right into that category.
Yeah, it sure does.
So how did you get involved in that before you got to supplying the Norton theaters?
My husband wanted a pinball machine when he was young, and his parents told him no.
Oh, I feel this pain.
Yeah, he has more than made up for that.
Yeah.
And we have plenty now. But that's what started that. And he has always just had this entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And, we have always just capitalized off that and worked very hard. We own pizza places and, we sold everything to get into the movie business.
Oh, gosh. The heart, the passion is what we're all about. And it's the through line with doing these interviews is there is a select bunch of people who just have this in their blood. They have this need and want to continue on this tradition and are willing to really do anything. But it's really nice to know that it was passed on from the original operator, that you guys have such a rich history and it wasn't like passed on time after time after time and you guys came into it.
Now, we're just the second owners, and the original owners did not have any children, and we, of course, have children.
Yeah.
And our goal is, of course, for our children to take over the drive-in, hopefully, at some point. Right.
Yes.
And our main goal was the drive-in, because the drive-in, in our mind, was the centerpiece of the business.
That's the ultimate, the penultimate leading up to.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, give us a little bit of history in that first run of the theater. Opened in 1952. What's the original owner's name?
Jeffrey Kaiser was his father's name.
Yeah.
And his name was Jeff Kaiser, who we purchased it from.
Right.
And, they opened in 1952. And, of course, there were drive-ins everywhere here then. Every little town here had one.
Yeah, that was the boom. Yeah.
Yes. But this one stayed. And, we're on what they call Business US 23 now. It's not the main road anymore. But at one point, it was the main road going between two of the small towns here in our county.
Yeah.
And, every little town had their own drive-in. But this one holds 400 cars.
Yes.
So we're pretty big. And they used to have a stage here where they played bands and things like that back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But that is gone.
You guys have a unique setup. I call it the stadium setup where...
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah, your back row is very high and it kind of works down in tiers, which is...
I say that all the time when I talk about our drive-in to people. I say we had stadium seating before anybody even thought about stadium seating.
The original stadium seating.
Yes,
right?
Because we're built into the mountainside.
Yeah.
So we had stadium seating before anybody ever thought about stadium seating here. So we don't have those problems where certain cars have to be parked in certain rows and things of that nature. We don't really have that problem here.
Yeah.
People can just park anywhere.
Right. It's so ideal, and you could so see how a staged situation could work. It's the perfect kind of vantage point and view to view anything down there by the screen.
Yes, and our screen is located with the mountains behind it just perfectly. I mean, it's absolutely stunning.
I believe it's one of those picturesque scenes, and a lot of the drive-ins that have been able to get around the land cost and the cities kind of invading the rural spaces kind of helps with the location of where you are,
Yes.
Is that the situation with you guys? Is it a bit off the beaten path?
It is, but the people who know where we are know where we are. We have our regulars, and we're located actually in the corner of the state. Wise County is located near the corner of the state. So we actually get customers from 3 or 4 different states.
Oh, that's awesome.
We get a lot of people from Kentucky. We get some people from Tennessee. We on occasion get people from North Carolina.
Yeah.
So we're located where we can get people from everywhere.
That's really the plus, I think, of the new love, the new era, revived era and love of the drive-in is it really gets into people's souls once they become fans and they want to go and support as many drive-ins as possible, which is another kind of launching off of why we decided to make this a big part of the podcast is there's not many of us left, and putting our heart into this thing, the least we can do is really try to support each other
Right.
and try to shine a light, because it goes beyond the local following now. You do have the
Right.
curiosity and tourism that comes in. As far as your guys' location, do you guys get any perks of like local tourism?
I try to attend a lot of local tourism boards that we have here, but
Yeah.
I find that we have to talk ourselves up a lot more than anybody will talk about us.
Yeah.
We've been here for 72 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, we're there. We're not the new and exciting new thing, but we are the oldest continually operating drive-in in the state of Virginia.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I try to bring that up at every conversation I can have with every town and every county around me. And the problem is I'm not in a town, and I'm not, my problem with our drive-in is we're outside of all the town limits. We're just in the county. We don't pay taxes to anybody.
They're like, we'll get to you when we get to you.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's
absolutely.
like, we'll think about you when we have to think about you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And it does. It takes a special type of rah-rah and, again, love and kind of rethinking the process over and over again, because Jeff says it perfectly. We've been there now for 75 years, and it just becomes part of the landscapes. It's very easy for people to forget that you're there. And
they just expect you to be there. So it's okay. And they just forget about you.
Yeah. We went through that wave and really were able to build the fan base needed to help us survive in this new era. And we're kind of in a world all our own, being that we show nothing but classic movies on 35 millimeter still. So it's really become a passion for not just the culture of the drive-in, but the preservation of film and 35 millimeter presentation specifically. Going back again to your history, any other kind of choice things that used to happen on the lot that were kind of passed down to you guys as far as the original owner?
No, not really. Just the food, the same quality of the food. We have all this homemade food that's made there.
Yeah.
Just the quality of the food.
Was that always the case with the original ownership as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about the cheeseburgers and the hot dogs that you get over there. There's just something about that food from there.
It just hits different.
Yeah, it's just different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't do a whole lot, they did when it first opened, they put people in parades and things like that. But as the time went by and they had different people managing things, things weren't as easy to do, I guess.
Yeah. It really is a constant pivot, which we're finding again is the business obviously reinvents itself on a regular basis. Hollywood reinvents itself on a regular basis, but
yes, it does.
So does your area, so does your culture, there's so many elements that go into it. I'm curious about your husband and yourself as far as the history when you guys were kids. Was there this love of drive-ins that made this the penultimate in your mind?
Well, I grew up in Illinois, and I can remember a drive-in outside of Aurora that I went to a couple of times.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't anything big to me. I don't even remember knowing this drive-in that we purchased existed until I started dating my husband.
Wow.
When I moved here.
Yeah.
And, of course, he knew it existed because he grew up about 6 miles from here. So he knew it existed, and he remembered sneaking in as a kid. That whole thing. But the whole point of buying it was because of the nostalgia, and he could put his games back in, and he could have his games, and he could have the drive-in, and he could have that whole nostalgia thing.
I thought you were going to say the point of buying the drive-in for him because that he still didn't want to pay to get in.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have to pay to get in now. Well, actually, we did pay a lot to get in.
That's the way to look at it. Yeah.
We paid a lot.
It sounds like a destined scenario for you guys. So,
but we bought it when our youngest son was a year old, and along with it, we bought a house that's right beside of it. So our two youngest children grew up in the drive-in.
that's amazing.
So how much fun can that be? You know, I mean, how much, that's just the greatest thing ever.
My munchkin is 6 now. My daughter is 19 and has, grown up on the lot. And I always say, and I've said it on this podcast, there's a sense of jealousy that I have for the lives that they're living, because it was my ultimate dream as a kid to be able to just be free at the drive-in all the time,
Yeah, and they're free there. They can run all over the place and
that's beautiful.
Do whatever they want.
Are they involved? Do they love the drive-in as much as I assume they do?
Yes, and our oldest daughter, who is a few years older than our two boys, it's like we had two separate families. But
happens.
She just turned 35, and our sons are 22 and 19.
Yep, just like us.
And same mom and dad, which is, I know that sounds unbelievable, but it's true.
Yeah.
Our daughter is running the drive-in. So now we have a whole nother generation with her children getting to feel that same way that the boys felt when they were little. And they're loving it. They can't wait for the Friday night when they get to be at the drive-in on Friday night.
That's cool. It's, the drive-in is such a familial atmosphere. It was really born and grown on this idea of multi-generations being able to go out and enjoy, a night out together, an easy night out together. And the idea that you got your family involved is really great. Let's give the audience a little bit of an idea of the layout. They know about the stadium kind of parking, the screen at the very bottom, concession stand.
Yeah, it's in the very center of our drive-in. And in there we do hamburgers, hot dogs. We brought back roast beef sandwiches, I think, but I'm not sure we're going to keep that. I don't think they'll go over very well.
Yeah, you got to test the waters with these things.
Yeah, it's like, and we have chicken sandwiches, which do good one year and won't do good the next year, and the only thing we don't do here is pizza.
Oh, we feel that. Well, let me ask, why don't you do pizza?
Well, Betty and I have a long history in pizza.
Oh, that's right.
We started a pizza company here, and that's how we were able to get enough money in order to purchase all this stuff.
Right.
So we have a long history in pizza, and we're just a little burnt out on it, but we don't know of a good pizza to do.
Like, if I never cook a pizza again.
Yeah, I just don't want to have pizza.
Yeah. It's one of those items for us. It really is difficult to keep up with the line. It's one of those prep items that takes time. And as far as your concession stand, self-serve, corral line, or you guys walk up?
No, they order and we make it as they order.
That's great. How are you with space? Are you needing a lot of staffing to keep the stand running on any given night?
It depends on, of course, how busy we are, but usually we have about 4 or 5 people at max in the concession stand because it's not that big.
Yeah.
But once we get the right people in there and they're trained good and they know what they're doing, they can whip through just about anything pretty quick.
That's great. Yeah. Single entry, are people able to come in on both sides, or is the ordering done outside and everything?
No, the ordering is done inside. We had to do outside ordering during COVID, and that was a disaster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did the same. We had to do the same. Yep. How did you guys manage that?
Oh, my goodness. We had to get Wi-Fi hooked up in the drive-in.
Oof.
And for heaven's sakes, we're in the most rural area. So, of course, we have no Wi-Fi here where we're at.
Yeah.
So we had to bring it from our house through all these connections. And everybody brought their iPads and everything else. And they had their kids watching another movie on the iPad. So they bogged down this whole system. And it was such a disaster. I mean, it was a nightmare. And then people would line up at the little table outside the concession stand, and oh my goodness! And nobody stayed 6 feet apart, no matter how many times you told them.
Oh, it's, as good as it was for the attention on the drive-ins, boy, oh boy,
Yes,
was it just
it was a headache.
yes.
They were trying to order online through our messenger app because we couldn't. We thought about going through RTS, which is our payment system,
Yeah.
and doing something through RTS where they could order, right? Because RTS can do that. And then we thought, well, we're only going to need this for a little while, probably, right? So thank goodness we didn't do that, because who knows how that would have bogged down the system too. I mean, it was a nightmare. COVID was a nightmare.
Yeah, it's the constant again, pivot. You never know what's around the corner. You never know what's going to come. I'm really curious because you guys took over in 2005, where we are right now as the only, full-time 35 millimeter drive-in is because of the shift in the industry that happened around 2014, 2015.
Yes.
Can you tell us your experience with the changeover and how that impacted you?
Well, we honestly thought we were going to have to shut down, honestly, because we had to buy 9 projectors.
Oh my gosh, because the indoor.
Well, actually, we bought 10 because we have 9 screens at the indoor and 1 down here.
Oh,
so we were going to have to buy 10 projectors.
Wow. It was the death knell for so many, and that's really the reason is, even as a drive-in, you have 2 screens, you're talking about a humongous investment.
Yes.
It's scary. So what did you guys do? Did you kind of take your time as far as the transfer with the indoor?
Well, we had to do the indoor first. So we got all that done and we signed our life away to financing companies.
Yeah.
And then we signed our life away again to financing companies for down here because we didn't win a projector.
Oh yeah, you were the Honda whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were in that, yeah.
So we
didn't win either.
We signed our life away again.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It gave so many so much hope. It really shined a light, but God, it's one of those things when it comes up, those lucky few.
I know, and I'm grateful that they got them. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
That they got them. I wish I'd have been one of them, but I'm grateful that somebody was. I'd already bought 9.
You're like, I'm good. So how did that transfer go? Did you guys have to totally redo your booth?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how did that all go?
It went pretty smoothly because we needed to redo the roof on the building anyway, because it was time for a new roof on the building. So it actually went okay because we just incorporated that into that whole price when we signed our life away a second time.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you planned that.
Yeah. I would have given them a kid, but they didn't want one of them, so.
You were ready.
Yeah.
You're like, I got a couple. You say the word. So what was the situation when you guys were running 35? Was Buddy involved in that? Was he hands-on? Were you hands-on?
I am a nurse also. So for a while, I wasn't very much hands-on.
Yeah.
But then we had a couple of bad things happen. His mother died and my mother died. And because of that, we decided I should come home and be at home more. Yeah. So I became more involved in the business. But now Buddy loved 35 millimeter. He loved that. He loved dealing with it. He loved dealing with the projector. We actually still have our 1950s 35 millimeter projector at the drive-in. We still have it.
Is it in your booth, functional, or is it a display?
It is in another room over there. I'm sure it could be made functional, I guess, because it was functioning when we took it down.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah,
I'm sure it could be made functional again, but, we still have it because Buddy loved 35 millimeter. He loved it.
Yeah, for a lot of people, especially people that were involved before the changeover, it really is the heart and soul of the process as far as the operations go inside that room. There's so much that goes into the prepping of film, the presentation of film. It's very different now.
You can actually see outside the window you can actually see the carbon things where they used to do the carbon strikes.
Yeah.
You can actually see them still in the ground, where they're embedded in the ground outside the building.
Yeah.
From earlier, I guess from the 50s and 60s, when they used to have to do some kind of carbon strike thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeff, can you explain a little bit about the carbon strike?
Well, the carbon strike itself is pretty simple. You turn on your high voltage, and then what you do is you turn a knob which brings the negative carbon forward and into the positive carbon. And then it's just like a welder. You get that strike, and then you immediately back off on the negative carbon so that there's a gap in between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's not very big, maybe quarter inch, half an inch, depending on how much power you're pushing. And then you maintain that. And the drive motors that are built into the positive and negative arcs do a pretty good job of maintaining that gap. You have to minorly adjust them every now and then, but they usually do a pretty good job of maintaining whatever gap you set. And then I know in my experience, a positive carbon was good for like maybe 2.5, 3 reels, and a negative carbon was good for about 5 reels.
And again, speaking on the ever-changing functionality, the ever-changing industry, the ever-changing functionality of the business, it's all about kind of moving with the times. And as much as I'm sure that financial strain hurt, it's one of those things where it's like, well, we don't really have a choice at this point, you know?
Well, we didn't. And, the whole goal was to keep this drive-in moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's paid for now.
God bless.
It is paid for now.
Yeah.
It was a struggle for a few years, but it's been worth it.
Absolutely. Good. Well, before I give the guys a chance to ask their questions, not to hog all your time, but my obsession with pinball runs very, very deep. As we said, the crossover with all things nostalgia being involved in this industry, it's a sickness. So let's talk about your on-site games, your on-site pins. What is the setup like?
We actually have a separate building now that Buddy has built for a game.
Stop. Amazing. So where's it located?
It is located near the front when you would pull in. It's at the entrance.
Oh, excellent. And the entranceway, again, to paint the picture, by the screen?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So
yes, we actually built it so that it's like a fence, so that there's no lights coming in from the roadway. So when people pass by, the lights aren't coming into and bothering the patrons.
Oh yeah, we know how that goes. There's a lot of perks to being a single screener, but there's a lot of downsides too. But you have to kind of figure those things out over time,
Yeah.
So you walk into this room. How big are we talking? Is it a ton of pinball games, ton of classics?
Unfortunately, yes.
You're like, I've lost this pizzazz you have for it.
I know. We're not going to talk about the drive-in anymore. We're going to talk about pinball machines. It is unfortunately a huge hobby that Buddy has. And it is unfortunately not my favorite thing.
You're like, again, another?
But I'll take that back. There are a few pinballs that I absolutely love that are my favorite pinballs.
Yes.
But he will sell those and buy ones that he likes the most.
Drat. Well, it's funny because the crossover love of pinball and drive-ins all came together with that Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Right. And we had Creature from the Black Lagoon in the drive-in for a long, long time.
Oh, you gotta, right?
And it tore up, and I don't know where we have it now. It may be somewhere to be fixed, or it may be gone. It may have been sold. Who knows?
Oh, that's so cool. Well, how do you guys work the pricing? Like, if I were to want to go in and play, is it quarters, or do you guys do like, hey, here you go?
It's quarters. We have been thinking about making it like a free play for anybody who's there at the drive-in once you bought your tickets, and just having it open from the inside of the drive-in, because there's 2 entrances to the game room. There's one, like if you just pulled in and wanted to go in and play in the game room and not go into the drive-in.
Yeah.
And there's another door on the other side, like you've already been in the drive-in and you can go in and play in the game.
He really has carved out his dream.
Yes. So we've thought about just making it a free play for people who are in the drive-in that have already bought their tickets.
What a perk. Yeah. You don't only get the beautiful atmosphere, but you get to hit some classic pins before sundown. My God.
Oh, yeah. And of course we have Pac-Man, Galaga, that whole bunch of those as well in there.
I love it so much. Well, I'm going to pass it on over to the guys, not to take up all your time. Jeff, you got anything for Paula?
I just had one question about what year again did you go digital? I mean, roughly between the indoor and the drive-in, what years were those roughly that you went digital?
Probably about 14 here, and probably about the same time at the indoor, maybe just because it's probably all around the same time. But we did the indoor first and then brought it here.
The reason I'm asking that is because I've talked to some owners that have older digital projectors, and if yours are around 10 years old now, do you ever worry about them starting to have problems?
We actually did have a problem, and the person who comes and fixes our stuff from Ohio had to come and replace a board inside the projector.
Yeah.
Because we have a System 2, I think he said today. A Series 2. I'm sorry, not a System 2, a Series 2.
Okay.
But he said if we'd had a Series 1, he probably could not have fixed it.
Wow.
But we have a Series 2.
Okay, well, that's good, because that's what I heard, that the older digital projectors can't even be repaired anymore, which, always worries me when it comes to a place that had to buy a lot of digital projectors.
Right, but they're not as expensive now as they were when you first had to purchase them.
I guess not. That makes sense. But he kind of gave you the impression you're probably good for a few years yet with the Series 2?
Yes, he hopes we are, yes.
Good.
Off of the guidance of Jeff, my amazing partner, I got involved in running indoor theaters as well for several years. And during my run at these indoors, the new craze of laser projection has gotten pushed and thrust upon the world. So it seems like the indoor really is the push for the laser. Are you guys getting pushed for that?
We haven't gotten any push for that. The one thing that we've sort of been interested in trying to figure out if we could or how we could is whether or not we could download the movies, doing that downloadable instead of having the hard drive sent to us.
Right, yeah. Download it from a satellite dish.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, again, the progression, being in it, working for these big companies that seemingly have all the money to kind of toss at these upgrades. It was a real eye-opener, to see these digital projectors that, a couple years ago people were dying for, just kind of being put in the corner as things are being replaced. I'm like, well, how quickly do things shift,
I thought they were just changing the bulbs to something different. So the laser projector's a whole new thing?
Yeah, wow. So there's no bulb involved, which is a real sell. The fact that you never will have to buy a bulb or change a bulb again. It's literally laser projection. So the beam is, light beam is a laser. You don't have to worry about thrusting upon people these changing of bulbs. It's crazy,
Well, the bulbs are expensive.
Oh, yeah, we know that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, times that by 10, that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Constant tracking of hours to get that warranty. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a board at the indoor cinema where our manager, who also helps keep track of things down here, she keeps track of all the hours on all the bulbs on a board.
It is important. It is very important. That warranty is everything when you're spending that money,
Yeah.
One more question for you before I kick it over to Mark. The landscape for you guys. I always wonder, is there kind of competition like directly around you as far as the movie going for locals? How close is the drive-in and the indoor?
We're about 6 or 7 miles from our indoor, but we're the only competition that we have. We are our only competition.
Beautiful. That's ideal.
Within about 40 minutes or so, because you can get to the Tri-Cities where Kingsport, Tennessee is, or Abington, Virginia, all within about 45 minutes. And,
Oh,
there's competition over there.
Yeah,
And there
yeah.
is a drive-in in Bristol, Virginia, where they do the NASCAR race. There's one right there at that NASCAR where they run the NASCAR race. There's one right across the road from there.
Yeah.
And that's probably the closest drive-in to us.
And I'm curious, as the booker here, does it inform your choices to be like, well, I got that over at the indoor. I guess I could be okay to not get it here. We know the pain of a single screen, so.
It depends on whether or not it's a children's movie. What we find is that if we play a children's movie here and we're playing it up there, we'll get just as many people down here sometimes, but then people will complain that we're only playing kids movies. And then we play an adult movie and they'll say, oh my God, you only play adult movies. So it's like you can't win.
We talked to somebody who called the single screen blues.
Yeah. It helps us that we can then send them to our indoor. It does help us that we can say, oh, but we're playing it up here. But some people don't want to go there. They want that driving experience.
Right.
It always felt like it was this sell, like there was this challenge to get indoor people to embrace the drive-in thing. It's not hard to fall in love with the drive-in, but it's a comfortability level. Some people really do get comfortable with their indoor situation. They're like, I'm not looking to change that, To each his own.
Yeah.
And it goes the same way with drive-ins, so.
Our biggest problem is people never like the bathrooms. No matter what we do, it's still
1950s bathrooms, right?
Well, it's outdoor bathrooms. They treat them like they do bathrooms at the park for some reason.
Yeah.
People don't care. They steal the toilet paper. They steal the soap. It's a constant battle.
It's a free-for-all.
It is. It's a constant battle.
They're like, look, we're in the mountains. We're in the wilderness. Let's get comfy.
Yeah. It's a constant battle.
Wow.
And that's our biggest complaint is our bathrooms.
For us, the place was built in 1949, and we joke that people must have been smaller then because the stalls are so tight, It's like they really utilized space back then.
You could only just go rebuild them every year.
That's right.
Just redo them every year. Make somebody happy.
Yeah. And of course, there's nothing like at the end of the weekend walking into a 75-year-old bathroom and taking a big whiff. Yeah.
Yep.
Like you can judge how popular an event we had by how terrible the bathroom smells at the end of the week.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
I understand.
Yeah. Mark, do you have any questions for Paula?
Oh, I have a wide array of random questions here that have arisen from this fine discussion so far. What would you say the most popular films that you run at the Central? I know a lot of drive-ins lean into family films because that's where it's at. Do you find that true for your area and your clientele?
One of the best movies we've ever played since we've had the drive-in was Ricky Bobby. Talladega Nights.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Talladega Nights.
You could walk through the parking lot and hear people laughing from car to car to car at the same exact moments.
Oh, wow.
And that was when we knew we had done the right thing.
Right choice, right?
Yes. That's when we knew we were having the time of our life. But now money-wise, I would have to say that Cars was probably one of the busiest.
Right.
Okay.
And Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yes.
Was probably, since we have purchased it, was one of the busiest nights we've ever had. Yep. One of the busiest weekends, rather.
Same at the morning.
But watching those people at Talladega Nights was just the greatest thing Buddy and I have ever experienced. Because it was just amazing listening to the people. They all laughed at the exact same moments. But scary movies really do good here at our drive-in, too, because we're kind of hidden away, and sometimes it gets a little foggy when the scary movies are on, and people really like that.
There's nothing quite like watching a scary movie on a nice, quiet night in the dark, where you think there's nothing in the woods behind the cars. As far as you know, there isn't, but the movie starts to make you wonder. And
Yeah.
that's just perfect. It's good to hear. Horror does really well for us. It's probably our most dependable thing. But I know a lot of theaters we talk to, they say the family movies, they try to get as much as they can because that's where it goes. But it looks like comedy, family, horror, you've got a lot of genres to draw from there.
Yeah, we do. We're lucky with that. We really are lucky that we can get a wide range of things to get people to come to the drive-in.
And do you do the booking of the films for the Central yourself, or do you have a booker that?
Buddy does it with our booking agent. Her name is Florence, and she does a great job. She booked for the Kaisers before we purchased the company, and we just kept her.
And do they book for your indoor as well, or is that right?
Yes.
And do you think it's an advantage having the indoor as well as the drive-in? Like if you run out of straws at the drive-in, you have the indoor nearby, things like that. Do you get any deals from the film companies for having two theaters, or is it percentage?
Well, we do save some in shipping costs because we'll get one hard drive and we can bring it to both places.
Right.
Great.
I mean, that's an advantage for us.
And your clientele, would you say it's mostly regulars, or is it a mix of a lot of like fresh faces or tourists or things like that?
At the drive-in, we do have some people that are regulars. We have some people that will come every weekend, even if the movie's the same as it was last weekend. They will come every Friday. Every Friday. They'll come for food every Friday, and they'll watch the movie. And then we have some people that have never been here. Every weekend, we'll have at least one person that will drive in and say, "Where do I park? How do I park? What do I do? I've never been here before."
We do too. And it's I always feel like it's an honor to have somebody pick your drive-in as their first drive-in ever. And you hope you make a good enough impression for them to want to keep coming back.
I know that always makes me smile when they've never been to one before and they've chosen me as their first one. And I like the ones that are coming around. Every once in a while during the summer, we'll get somebody that's going to 7 or 8 drive-ins.
Right.
And they've picked us to come to also on their little journey, going to 7 or 8 different drive-ins.
I was going to ask about that. Drive-in tourism basically is what that is.
And I think that drive-ins need to get together a lot more and promote that. You know, come see me and then go see this one and go see this one. And
it's so important. When I was running the vineyard, the culture is very much built around these wine trails where you will follow a map, on a day and stop at all these different vineyards. And the idea of kind of connecting the dots with all the friends that we're making, we actually have a map on our website where as people listen to this, they can go and see, how do we get there? How do we do this, that? So it's a nice way to, like you said, connect all these theaters.
We don't really see ourselves as in competition with any other drive-in, especially because what we do is so different from everybody else. But if drive-ins doing well helps drive-ins do well, if people go to a drive-in anywhere, if they're on vacation, they go to the Central, they have a great time. They may find, hey, you know what? There's one within an hour of our house. Let's go to that one. And it's just, and this is part of the idea of doing this series of podcasts is every drive-in is unique in some way and cool in some way. And I love finding out. I love going myself when I can, but I love having these discussions to find out, what makes the Central unique and why should people want to go there? Because it's there and it's cool. One other question I had about the film booking, do you sort of book based on like a calendar? Like, do you plan out what you're going to get, or do you make the decision of what to get closer to showtime, so to speak, not on the night, but like, you play a film for a week or two and you're like, okay, now what are we going to play? Or do you already kind of have it figured out?
Sometimes we plan a little bit in advance because we know what's coming out. We know what's supposed to come out when, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes we might think, well, in July, we're going to play blah, blah, blah because it comes out then. Well, my husband just came down and he said, well, in July, Deadpool 3 comes out.
Right.
So in his head, he's already thinking, I've got to remember that in July, I need Deadpool 3 at the drive-in.
And then there's that game of the studios requiring you to play movies for a certain number of weeks, which is certainly on a single screener. So it's as Virgil said in other podcasts, it's the chess game of planning when to play leading up to Deadpool 3.
Right. And then him and Florence will figure out, what to play the week before it comes out or what to play 2 weeks before, depending on what else is coming out. And things get moved around too in the movie schedules. Deadpool 3 might not come out till August. I mean, who knows, because things get moved around.
Or next year for all we know. Yeah.
Yeah, or next year for all we know. But, it's like we usually talk to the booker on Mondays, and then we'll know for certain what's playing. And then we put that out on our stuff.
And are you just Friday, Saturday?
No, we're Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
So weekends only.
Yes. And the whole month of July, we're usually open every night.
Oh, cool. Now, that leads back to a question I had. I was going to jump in earlier, but I didn't want to be rude. If the occasion occurs where you have to have your tech come out and he's in Ohio, have you ever been in danger of losing a show because of that, or because your weekends only, he has, several days to be able to sort of make time for you and fix the problem?
Well, we have had power issues before where the main power has just fizzled out on a Friday night.
Oh, that happened to us last year.
Did us too? Tell them July 3rd weekend.
July 3rd, the weekend of July the 4th.
Wow, yeah.
The power blew.
Happy holiday.
Yeah, it went crazy, and we had to have the whole main power grid redone.
17 days later.
Yeah, $12,000 and 17 days later, my husband said.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when it rains, it pours. But that's okay, because we survived it. But that's the stuff that happens. That's what happens when you have stuff that was built in 1952.
We know that song oh so well.
Yeah.
You work with what you got. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And, it was fixed once. And, it wasn't fixed, I guess, enough to make it not mess up again.
Yeah.
It was patched.
Dealing with a theater that's now 75 years old and hasn't really been updated very much since 1949. We find that over the years, the various operators, they fix things with, spit in a dream sometimes. And sometimes those dreams and that spit's are going to last you a couple decades. And sometimes suddenly, why is the fan not working anymore?
Well, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have lots of good plans for your 75th anniversary?
Yeah. We so the very first movie to play at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater was a film called April Showers in April of 1949. And we're going to play that. We're also going to lean into, I think, a more modern classic to make it a bigger draw, I think, for families. Great history in the plans for April Showers. Just don't know how big a draw it will have. But yeah, we're going to be doing a big hoopla for it for sure.
I just had one question. I got to go back out, but Mahoney, your drive-in, I had seen it in the Project Drive-In Honda thing that they sent us on film. That was our last year, 2013. And there was a guy going up on the sign doing it. Is he still alive?
If it would have been 2013.
That would have been me.
There was a guy going up on top of the marquee and saying, like Project Drive-In. And that's how I saw the sign.
It would have been Mike or myself. I don't remember doing it, but it could be. It would have been Mike or myself. Mike was the former owner. It was either him or me, because I started out as the manager and projectionist. So I usually changed the marquee. But
yeah, well, they put the Honda Drive-In on, and then Seiko Drive-In, and we all did it too, trying to get votes. But it was a pretty neat campaign. But we didn't.
We talked about that already.
I know we didn't win, but I wasn't here, so I didn't know. But I just had to ask if that was, I remember that's the first time I ever heard of your drive-in, and I've been following on Facebook since. And I like your VHS tape stuff you do sometimes in the lobby.
Oh yeah. The VHS, 2 walls of VHS now.
Oh, you see.
I told you he likes that. He likes that retro stuff.
Nostalgia, baby.
I buy some stuff from lunchmeat.com to get some VHS tape.
We do VHS Fest with them every year. So Lunchmeat sets up and they help us pick the films and run the show. They're great.
Oh, that movie that came out during the pandemic about the tree. I can't remember the name of it, but he had it on VCR. But there's only like 20 copies, and I didn't get it in time.
Yeah, those limited runs. Colossal was the name of that movie.
Thanks. Good talking to you. Back to Paula.
Oh, absolutely.
He has to get his retro stuff in. Sorry.
No, that's what we're all about.
That's
So I
right.
had a question thinking about the amphitheater setup where each row is above the row in front of it facing the screen and no car has an obstructed view. Does that make it worse with the problem of headlights on the screen?
We do have to go tell some people how to turn their headlights off. Yes.
Because that's a steady thing for us. Usually it's people who are newer cars, which it's a lot harder to turn the headlights off and have the radio on at the same time if people are sitting inside the car. But I was just thinking about that, like on our lot with the cars, one behind the other, some of the headlights might not make it to the screen if they're parked farther back. They're just, shining the sun into the back window of the car in front of them. So, but with the amphitheater, it's not any worse than it is for a normal drive-in.
I spend a lot of time Googling how to turn headlights off.
Oh yeah,
on
that's what I say.
cars.
I hear things on how to do it with a modern car, and I'll go up to somebody and I'll say, "Let's find out together if this works." And then if it does, I'm like, "Great, we both got a little bit smarter."
Yeah, I spend a lot of time Googling different models of cars and how to turn their headlights off. Most of the time, if you just turn your car off, put the park brake on, and then turn it back on, it will turn off your headlights.
And people are mystified by it. They're like, "Oh my God, thank you."
What I found with some of the newer models is you have the car totally off and you hold down the button for whatever they call it, media center.
Auxiliary.
Whatever. It's like a push button start for the radio. And if you hold that down, just the radio will come on, not the headlights. Those are for like the most recent cars. I had read that, and a couple times I would go up to somebody and I said, let's just try this and see if it works. And it did. And I was just so happy. They probably thought I was a maniac, but I get excited about learning.
We have tried to solve that problem because we have FM radio here.
Right.
Yeah. So Buddy, in his retro, craziness, has bought about 35 FM radios.
Right.
And we keep them with fresh batteries in them, and we keep them tuned to our radio station. So all they have to do is come in, like leave an ID.
Right.
Oh, nice. You had to rent.
Yeah, rent the radio, and it's a minimal $5 fee. They rent the radio. We turn it on. We show them that it works. They take it out, and they have a radio, and they don't even have to have their car on.
Yeah.
We used to do that, but we found the radios would get damaged over time, and people were not coming back at the end of the night to pick up their license. So at the end of the night, we would close our snack bar, and we would have a couple of driver's licenses and be down a couple radios. And it was a kind of a pain, but it's a good service to do because a lot of people who don't know how it's going to work when they show up don't realize either they can't get their car headlights to turn off, or they're afraid they're going to run their battery down. And having those courtesy radios is always a good idea.
Well, we haven't had that problem yet. But Buddy, who normally does our box office, my husband, Buddy, he does the box office, and he'll tell people, just to bring an FM radio with them. And some people don't know what a radio is.
Isn't that wild?
Wow. See?
And they'll want to know, can it be done on an app on their phone?
No.
And of course, the drive-in only has that little small area, that the signal work. And of course, it's not on the app on your phone.
Right.
So...
Our radio signal, until Jeff flips the switch, locally it's a Christian radio station, I believe, which is quite the contrast when you switch from that to the kind of movies we show sometimes. But just like somebody thinks they're going to get their sermon or their gospel and they get the sound of chainsaws and screaming. But I think if you try to use the app, you get, like, you can be standing at our drive-in and that's what you get because that's what the official frequency is.
Right. Well, ours is nothing.
Yours is just, that's great.
And you can only get it right here at the drive-in. I mean, you can get it in our house, but we're, almost right on top of the drive-in. So
I think ours goes several miles in one direction. If it's a night where I'm arriving a little late and we do live radio before the show starts, I can tune us in probably a good 10 minutes before I hit the drive-in one direction. The problem with the apps is if you can tune the station in, there's a delay with what the app receives and what we're putting out. So it would be, even if you could make an app work, it would be out of sync. It'd be like you're watching a dubbed movie or something like that. So yeah, we have to do the explaining of, I don't know if we've had to explain what a radio is yet, but we have to tell people, go up straight to the Walmart. I think they maybe sell radios there, but I'm not even sure how easy it is to buy a radio anymore. It does seem like it's kind of weirdly a thing of the past.
A prevalent thing. Our Walmart definitely still is.
They probably do a good business with our customers.
In radios, for a reason.
eBay.
Yeah.
It's funny because I feel that bug that Buddy's got, because being in the drive-in culture, the retro radios are a real easy thing to kind of get into. So I can definitely feel that. I'm glad that Buddy was able to pop on, talking to current owners. I just have to thank them for the heart that they're putting into the next generation of the drive-in, and even better that you guys are kind of prepping your next generation for your drive-in. Such a blessing. So thank you guys for everything that you're doing.
Well, thank you for having me to talk to you all tonight. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
It's such a treat. When we jumped in on this thing, we felt so blessed having the light shined on us with a documentary that came out at the drive-in by the great Al Minnelli. And the thought behind that was a light shined on us out of the blue. If we have the opportunity to do that, and people are listening to the podcast and have a place to come and wear that love of the drive-in proudly, we're honored.
I love my drive-in. I've always called it a little slice of heaven that people forget about, and some people don't even know about.
Yeah.
It's my little slice of heaven. I've been so proud to have it. I love it.
We've been around so long, as Virgil said, since 1949. The thing I used to get a lot from the locals, and these are locals, mind you, they'd come up to you and say, "Is that place still open?"
I get that a lot too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, can you let the people listening and fans listening at home know where they can find your Slice of Heaven, whether it's website or social media?
Well, our Facebook page is always the best way, and it's just Central Drive-In in Norton, Virginia. It is part of our website, which is Cinema City. You can find that by searching Cinema City in Norton, Virginia.
And that gives you both the drive-in and the indoor.
And the indoor, yes.
That's perfect. One-stop shop. Well, thank you again for making the time for us. Everybody listening out there, be sure to make a point to stop. You know it. The East Coast Drive-In love. We're all one circuit. We really should make a map or something that we could just all give out,
I would hand them out.
Heck
I would
yeah.
hand them out here.
We're going to make something happen. We're going to connect the dots, literally.
Yep, let's connect the dots. Send people all over.
Yeah.
And most of them are here. I think most of them are here on the East Coast. I think. There's only 5 here in Virginia, I think, now, but most of them I think are here on the East Coast.
We're very blessed.
Yeah, the oldest drive-ins are on the East Coast. They spread west. In fact, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York have the most amount of drive-ins. Those are the 3 states that have the most. How many are in Virginia? Do you know?
I think just 5 now.
Yeah.
5. Okay.
I think just 5. I think there's us, Family Drive-In, Hull's Drive-In, and I think there is Park Place Drive-In and Goochland Drive-In.
Right.
I think is all that's left.
How about that? Wow.
Yeah. Well, you're doing God's work. I love it. Making memories for generations that they won't soon forget. Well, I guess that's good. I think on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.